So, is it a headphone or a pair of headphones? Does it matter? Comment now while you watch the unbox. First things first, this is the Beyerdynamic DT 900 Pro X headphone. I know Beyerdynamic since a long time ago as a studio company making pro stuff for audio professionals. Walk into any pro studio, I mean a proper pro studio, of which not many are left, but that's another story, and you'll commonly see the Beyerdynamic DT 100 used for musicians' foldback. Beyer. I've heard it as the English pronunciation since the 1980s, and it's hard to get it out of my head. Let's move on. The Beyerdynamic DT 100. It looks like a time warp from 1965. Sounds great, easily fixed when broken due to what would have to be extreme mistreatment. 1965? That's when the DT 100 came out, and you can still buy it now. I say this because Beyerdynamic's history and commitment to pro audio is pretty much a guarantee that anything you buy with the Beyerdynamic brand is going to do the job, the professional job. I said anything? Well, that anything would include headphones and microphones. I'll be looking at some Beyerdynamic microphones soon. That should be fun. And you'll not just be looking, you'll be listening too. Notice the pro in the name. Normally this means little or nothing. Usually nothing. But this is different. Beyerdynamic makes what I could call consumer products as well, but here pro definitely does mean pro. And hi-fi enthusiasts are of course welcome to join in. If I'm going to describe the DT 900 Pro X, I'd say that they're exactly what you expect headphones to be, and you can see that from the pictures. What you can't see so clearly, and it's important to know, is that they are open back. I'm sure you know the difference between closed back and open back, but just for completeness I'll say that closed back keeps the sound in. Open back lets some of the sound out. One might ask, why open back if they leak? Well, it's commonly thought that open back just sounds more natural. It's a better way to make a better sounding headphone, and if there's a trade-off with leakage, well, it's worth it. That's the commonly held opinion anyway, and I largely don't disagree. I know that most of my viewers are hi-fi enthusiasts rather than studio professionals or creators, but I think it's good to know what goes on before the music gets to you, your system, and your ears. I think that once upon a time studio professionals would have been aghast at the idea of open back. Suppose you're recording a vocal and the singer is listening to the backing track on open back headphones. Sound will leak out and get into the microphone. In the less worse case, it gets onto the vocal track, giving the mix engineer a hard time. In the worst case, there's feedback and howl round. In the medium worst case, what's on the backing track is preparatory, and there's something that isn't intended to be used in the final mix, but it gets into the vocal track and it's hard to get rid of. As an example, way back in the past, I found it efficient to give my singers cue notes for pitch just before they came in. Of course, most singers with studio experience don't need this, but you don't know if you haven't worked with them before. Another example, the vocal is recorded to the backing track, but in the mix it's decided that there should be a couple of lines with the vocal alone, or with a more lightly instrumented backing, such as without the drums. I think it should be clear that leakage from the headphones would be a bad thing. Having said that though, even if the vocalist wears closed headphones, some like to push back one earpiece slightly so that they hear some of their voice coming through the air, as well as through the microphone. Or a singer with long hair might wear the headphones over their hair, causing leakage because of a poor seal. Try telling them not to do that, and you've just got the session off to a bad start. So maybe a little leakage is something up with which you'll have to put. So if old-time studio pros might pale at the thought of using open-back headphones, then why? Well, I've given the example of a studio vocalist, but headphones are also used by the recording engineer as a close check for any problems and as an aid to judging whether the sound is right. Judge it on main monitors, judge it on near fields, judge it on headphones. If it sounds good on all of them, hit record and go for a take. Also, during mixing, headphones are useful for close quality checks, but also for balance. It's a commonly held thought that if you mix on speakers, the finished mix will also sound good on headphones. But if you mix on headphones, what it sounds like on speakers might be really not quite right. But I'd guess that much more listening is done these days on earbuds and headphones than it is on speakers. So at least checking a mix on headphones is a must. And I'd go further and say maybe mix on headphones and check on speakers. So if open back can give you a better sound than closed, then yes, they are a perfectly viable choice for the studio. Coming on to the headphones themselves, compared to the strictly hi-fi oriented products I've tested recently, the DT 900 Pro X is no frills, no nonsense, nothing trying to be too clever. High quality, of course, but built for a function. As a personal comment that you may or may not agree with, I actually like plastic headphones. I find metal cold, often sharp-edged, and somehow not to my liking. So, if the surfaces and parts that I touch are mostly plastic, or plastic-covered metal, this feels more friendly to me. Maybe it's more what I'm used to. So handling-wise for me, I prefer these headphones to others I've tested recently. And for me, I work a lot with headphones, and I'm putting them on and taking them off many times during the day. So it is important. As for looks, the DT 900 Pro X looks like a high-quality professional headphone. I can't see how anyone could find anything not to like. Also, under look and feel, I'll include mechanical operation. Firstly, the ear cups don't swivel much side to side. I'm not such a fan of the side-to-side swivel. Just enough is enough, and the DT 900 Pro X has just enough. Up and down adjustment is of course important in any headphone. I've seen some shockers. Too tight, too loose, maybe even having to unscrew something and screw it back in again. The adjustment here is firm and precise, and I'm happy. I need to throw in that the pads are comfortable. I have to say though that I really do prefer a suspension headband when done right. But among headphones that are suspension-less, if that's a word, these are quite comfortable. But some might say, and I did find a volunteer to help me judge, that the pad's a little on the hard side. It feels soft to the fingers, but oddly not so much to my head. I think I can get used to it. Also, I have to notice that my big head finds the headband a little too tight. OK, this keeps the cups close to my ears, and maybe I'm moaning too much. You, with your normal size head, will be fine. Oh, and since I titled this chapter Look and Feel, what would anyone feel if they weren't able to look? Well, they should feel braille for left and right. But no braille. I mentioned the DT100 being amenable to servicing and repair, clearly needed in a rough-and-tumble professional environment. So what can I take apart in the DT900 Pro X? Well, the ear pads. There is a bit of a knack to it, and one might worry about breaking something in the process. Ham-fisted as I am, though, I got the pads off just fine, and back on again. Of course, you'd only have to do this to clean or replace the pads after long, sweaty hours of use. I'm not sure whether there are aftermarket pads available, but that wouldn't bother me. I note that with the pads removed, there is, unlike some headphones, nothing you can damage if you're, for some reason, tempted to poke your finger in. Why would anyone do that? Well, take a look at the centre of the woofer cones of any pair of Yamaha NS10Ms that you come across. People poke. The other thing that you might want to clean or eventually replace after heavy use is the headband padding. Now, I've read the manual to check how to remove this. I felt, though, that if I pulled too hard, I might damage something. If the pad needs replacing, then no bother. But I like these headphones and I want to keep them intact. If there could be online video instruction, that would be wonderful. Oh, there is. Link in the description. Just to underline Beyerdynamic's commitment to servicing, take a look at their parts webpage. And that's not even all of it. I'm often easily pleased, and I'm often easily dissatisfied. Here's the thing. A headphone cable should be 3 meters long. Not 2, not 1.5, 3. The reason for this, which I don't see why more people don't find obvious, is to wear headphones watching TV. I've commented before on reasons why people do this, and it is a genuine thing. But the headphones I've reviewed so far, and I don't remember any exceptions, come with a cable that's so short you'd need to be working at a desk or have your headphone amp on a side table. No, I want to plug my headphones into the amp I keep under my TV, then retreat to a comfortable distance and slouch back into my IKEA Pwing recliner. One day it'll be my Eames recliner, but I don't have Eames money to spare just yet. So, does the DT900 Pro X come with a 3-meter cable? Yes. Oh dear, say all those short cable fanatics. But it comes with a 1.8 metre cable as well. I couldn't be happier. All headphones should be this way. I could throw in that the connector isn't a mini jack, but it's like a miniature latching XLR, the type of which I haven't used previously myself. I like it, but maybe it could affect the availability of aftermarket cables. That wouldn't bother me, but I think it needs a mention. Also mentionable is that, wait for it, here it comes, these headphones are not balanced. Quel choc! Quelle horreur, if you'll pardon my French. Commenters, get ready. There's no need for headphones to be balanced. The only benefit is that an amp can be 6 dB louder for a given rail voltage. Commenters, I'll leave it up to you. The plain fact is, though, that although headphones are inherently balanceable, they need a suitable cable. And a single 3-pole connector can't carry 2 channels of balanced signal. Call me a bad person, but I don't mind. As you'll know if you watch my channel, I don't do subjective reviews, but I will comment if I hear any faults. Headphones, however, are funny things. Listening on headphones is so unnatural that any comment can't be anything other than subjective. What I'll consider, therefore, is firstly whether I can use these headphones for my music production activities. Come on, they're Beyerdynamic, studio born and bred. Of course I can. I would be absolutely happy to use these headphones during the recording process, for mixing and for mastering. Of course, I don't only use headphones, but when I want headphones, the DT900 Pro X will work just fine. As for listening, well, I've spent quite a few evenings watching TV dramas, and I've enjoyed the audio quality perfectly. Well, as perfectly as one can when the actors are mumbling. But that's why anyone might wear headphones in the first place. If I have quibbles watching TV, they're about what the headphones are not, rather than what they are. I miss my suspension headband, and for my big head, as I said, they're a little too tight. But both of these factors are perfectly ignorable once settled into a good show. My other use would be walking in the woods, which is my favourite way to enjoy music, other than live. Of course, since they're open back, some sound leaks. But it isn't much, and it isn't going to annoy the wildlife or the occasional dog walker. Whether I would want to expose my listening habits in a more public place, like a train or a bus or a coach, well, personally, I'd rather not. But this is in the nature of open-back headphones. I'll add that the 48-ohm impedance of the DT900 Pro X is a good fit for my $9 Apple so-called adapter, which of course is a miniature DAC and headphone amp. Perfectly loud enough and clean enough for excellent outdoor enjoyment. So let's suppose that a very task-oriented burglar broke in and stole all my headphones. I'd like to rebuy, if that's a word, my favourite model from the 1990s, but they only come up very rarely second-hand. I'm going to say that the DT900 Pro X would be an extremely strong contender for me. I don't normally mention price in my reviews because A, you can look it up, B, prices often change, and C, people's price tolerances are different. In this case, however, I personally would find the price fine for what I'm getting. Good value for a performance that's easily well up to the performance of my ears. So yes, all round, I'm a happy bunny. As a reviewer, I get to keep these headphones, and I absolutely will use them. As always, other than receiving the item and any affiliate links, there's no payment nor influence involved. So I can say what I like, and I've said it. See you soon.